Bizarre Brain Comics. Good evening. The Dark Librarian here again, once again, for October, the month of Halloween. And once again, I am here to tell tales of terror. This time, we're going to talk about this little thing right here. This is Vampirella. This is Vampirella Classics #1 from Harris Publishing, 1995, but it's reprinting earlier material from Warren Comics from 1969, 1970, along in that area. It's a beautiful Frank Frazetta cover. Now, to consult the big book of knowledge. Vampirella. She made her first appearance in Vampirella #1 in 1969, published by Warren Publishing. This was a black and white horror magazine, a sister publication to Warren's Eerie and Creepy magazines. And she was created by Forrest J. Ackerman of famous Monsters of, I guess this is supposed to be Filmland, I think, magazine, and artist Trina Robbins, who I hope to cover another time. Initially, she was just a horror host, just like Eerie and Creepy, but a few issues into the magazine's run, she became the main character of her own horror adventure stories, penned by writer Archie Goodwin. She still filled the post as host. See what I did there? For the other stories, filling out the magazine. She's especially known for her very skimpy outfit and for the fantastic and sexy art which ran in her title as well as the other Warren titles. It was published until 1983 when the publisher folded, and the rights to the character have passed through the hands of other publishers since, such as Harris, and she's currently being published. This is reprint and new material by, I want to say Millennium Comics, but I may be incorrect on that point. And Archie Goodwin. It's from 1937 to 1998. And he worked on a number of comic books and comic strips, primarily for Marvel Comics and Warren magazines. He was editor-in-chief for Marvel in 1977-78. And he edited Epic Illustrated magazine and the Epic Comics imprint for Marvel, and did a lot of work on Star Wars, both in the comic books and newspaper strip. And Tom Sutton, from 1937 to 2002. And he's best known for his work at Warren magazines and Marvel Comics also. In 1955, after high school, he spent a hitch in the Air Force and did art projects while stationed in Wyoming. Then, while stationed in Japan, he started Milton Caniff style. It'd be like Steve Canyon type style strip for a base publication, and which was his first professional art job. Then he worked on the Stars and Stripes newspaper, and in 1960 he attended the School of the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, and after that he freelanced on commercial art jobs for a while. And the Stars and Stripes. I spent 6 years in the Navy, and I never once saw a Stars and Stripes newspaper. So maybe it was just for the Army and Air Force. So, let's get a load of Vampirella. Hey, what's that doing there? That's not the cover. No, that's a drawing I did several years ago. I don't even know where the original one is. Here we go. This is Vampirella Classic, Harris Publishing, #1. Out of the reprints, I only have Harris. And just a few issues. And this is how Vampy first started. Now this particular cover is the same painting used on the cover of Vampirella #1 from Warren Publishing. And here it was a large black and white magazine format. Always had a beautiful cover painting. Sometimes from a Vampy story, sometimes from something else that was in the book. And then some of the other Harris reprints. And this one here was an original cover specifically for this was Vampirella of Dracula. I don't know the difference. It's just repainting the stories. They don't necessarily seem to be in order, and it was serialized and syndicated. Some of the stories were self-contained in an issue. Some of them were continued, like this here. This starts right in the middle. Archie Goodwin, Jose Gonzalez. One of the reasons I chose this instead of one of the magazines is just because it's got color, and they did some beautiful work. But the story I'm going to talk about is here in the back. It's earlier. And this is, even though it's #1, it's right in the middle of a story. So, I don't know. And this is drawn by Tom Sutton and written by Archie Goodwin. Beautiful, lovely young lady. Very, very sexy. Tom Sutton's art, it's very good. No, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say anything bad about him. But it just is not as lovely as Jose Gonzalez, who took over shortly afterwards for the main stuff. Okay, here we have, and we also notice that her costume was not quite as skimpy, but it soon got much skimpier, and to be totally impractical and unfunctional in real world. So anyway, Vampirella, of course, as her name implies, she is a vampire. But she is a vampire from outer space. We'll see that here, because it has a flashback here. Here she is, exhausted, injured, whatever, walking through a snowscape. Now, this page here is real nice. Completely silent. But telling the story of her walking, stumbling through the woods. She sees this house, a large house, and approaches it when she finally succumbs and collapses. But then we see this big hulking figure come upon her. And that was a nice bit of storytelling. Here we continue with that storytelling. Close up on her. She's covered by a shadow. Her eyes get wide, beautiful green eyes. And then we see, what's kind of horde monster is this? And she screams and passes out. Who serves the cause of chaos? Part 1. We're only going to do part 1. Here she is, dropping into unconsciousness, and then we see she dreams about her home planet Draculon, how the planet was dying. It's a planet of vampires, and the rivers ran with blood instead of water, and they needed the blood to survive, but it was drying out, and so she left Draculon, came to Earth, but when the bloodlust came upon her, she was more like a traditional vampire and would attack innocent people even though she didn't want to. And she had the ability to sprout wings, and she could fly. Now, later on, I don't know the circumstances, she was, like the conventional vampire story, she was able to turn into a bat, and she flew that way. Now we get a recap of what has happened before. She was in an airliner, struck by lightning, and part of the plane exploded. She was thrust out. She tried to fly, and then here she is. Oh, the monster! And the vision forms up into a man as she's coming out of unconsciousness. Here she is. This man is a doctor. It's a really nice mansion, nicely drawn. The setting shows you it's someplace in the mountains, in a snowstorm, which is where she was. I'm telling exactly where this was, but it's a beautiful rendition, and nice work here with the inks, kind of foreshadowing a mysterious nature to the doctor in this darkness-filled room. Makes it eerie, and of course she's nude in the bed, because these were completely no comics code, so they could get away with more sex and violence. And they're talking to the doctor. She tries to get away because she fears people. Yeah, she fears people because they'll think she's a monster. And she doesn't trust anyone. She tries to get away, but she doesn't get very far. And then the doctor explains that because she's talked in her sleep, he knows about her from Dracula and such. And he had said he had to amputate her wings so she can no longer sprout wings and fly. But as I said later, she is able to turn into a bat. And here we see the nurse coming in, and he has to leave. Tells Vampy to stay. Of course, she's confused, but she's suspicious. And then the nurse is just talks really taking now, because she is supposed to be his lady, and she's jealous, but it's more than that. She holds secrets over him. Plus, we see this medallion she's wearing, and we find out later that is the medallion as a symbol of the god of chaos, who is a recurring villainous. This cult of chaos is a recurring opposition to Vampirella. And so she really cows him, and now Vampy she's glad that she followed and listened in. But this is, as I said, this is only part one, to be continued. Oh, yeah. But I wanted to show you some more here. Said Jose Gonzalez, very, very beautiful work. And even though it is originally intended for black and white, they did a really good job with the coloring, so it doesn't detract from the beauty of the original artwork. And this story we just covered was also, so here you can see how her costume is skimpier, and it gets skimpier still. And a recurring theme of some light bondage. There, look at that face. That is undoubtedly from a live model or photo reference. It was used many times. And this is her. That first story was before her rest of her cast of characters. Before her cast of characters, such as Adam Van Helsing and his father, who is a blind vampire hunter, and also later Pendragon. Oh, here we go. And this was a beautiful black drawing. Let's take a look here. Cover. Notice how in the painting the the clothing just kind of magically adheres to her skin when it wouldn't be able to follow on the contours of her body. Oh, and this also features Panther in here. Panther was a backup recurring character in backup stories, and also with Vampirella. Now, this was a good cross of crossover science fiction and horror, because she herself was a science fiction and horror character. And one of her recurring cast members and sometimes villain is Dracula himself. And herein we see that Dracula, their version of Dracula, is the basis for the Bram Stoker's Dracula, and he is also from Dracula. Here, another beautiful drawing. More Jose Gonzalez. So here we see another backup story. Some kind of fantasy storyline, swords and sorcery and the gods, usually with a horror twist. This is beautifully drawn by I know this artist. I can't think of his name. Yeah, Esteban Morado. Oh, he's beautiful. And he has done a lot of fantasy Marvel stuff as well. Here we have a werewolfy story. The Terror in the Tomb. Luis Bermejo, I think. A lot of Spanish names. Could be Filipino. I don't know. And here's Panther, the Panther Girl. She's like a werepanther, fighting the ape. And she, as I said, she appears in many Vampy stories as a recurring character there, and also has some of her own stories. Some really lovely stuff. I love this cover. Of course, I love the original Frank Frazetta. He did several covers for them. But there's just something about this particular cover I really enjoy. Okay, and I think that's about all I've got for Vampirella for today. Follow up me on my tale of Halloween horror for the rest of this month. Hope you enjoyed it. If so, like, subscribe, share it with other comic book or horror fans. And we'll see you next time. Remember, comics are art.